I was checking one of my credit cards the other day and I realised that I'm actually paying 31% interest per annum. So I've set about looking to clear the balance, obviously, because it's just draining money. But I had noticed there's a few sort of finance gurus out there saying that, credit cards can make you rich, credit cards can make you money, you can generate income from credit cards. And I looked into it in a bit more detail. And I thought, how could this work? Even, people like Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, very wealthy guy, talks about using debt to make money. But I realised that, using credit card to make money is really not going to happen. As an example, imagine if you were to, say you spent £1,000 a month on shopping and groceries, things like that. I mean, a lot of people don't spend that kind of money. But imagine if it was £1,000 a month and you were to use your credit card to pay for all your groceries, £1,000 a month, all on your credit card, and you use that 56-day interest-free period, and then you use the money that you've earned, that you would have spent on your groceries and your shopping, to then invest. So you stick it in, say, S&P 500, something like that, which can get you anything from 7 to 8% per annum. So you put it in there during that 56-day interest-free period. You'll earn probably about £7 on that investment, right? So then what you do is you cash that in and then you can pay off the credit card and you've made £7. But it's just not scalable at that kind of, unless you've got, 30, 40, 50, £100,000 limit on a credit card, which I know some people do, but for your average Joe Bloggs on the street, you're not going to get that kind of limit. So you're going to make £7 a month, but you're also taking the risk of a massive market drop of, 5% in a day, which happens quite often. Then you could be £100 down, and then you've lost out. The only people that are making money really on credit cards are the banks on a major scale. Back to my original credit card scenario. So I was looking at, I've got about £1,400 on a Barclay card, and I pay, my minimum payment's about £56, I think it is. And I worked out the interest rate is about 31% per annum. They've actually doubled it since I took the card out. It was on a much lower rate, and I hadn't realised. I mean, I'm sure they wrote to me. I'm sure they did, to let me know that they put it up. But they've whacked it up. And, the interest on that is nearly £40 a month. And I realised that, I've just done some recent investments as part of sorting out my personal pension. And I've done an investment with Royal London short-term money market fund, which is generally a kind of a safe bet. It's like having money in a savings account, but it pays a decent rate, or reasonable rate, 4.71, I think it is at the moment, %. And it pays that monthly. I worked it out that you'd have to have £15,000 in one of those funds to earn, say, £56 a month. So if I clear that credit card off, that frees up £56. That's like having a windfall of 15 grand in a money market fund that's now paying me interest of £56 a month. It's just thought it's a different way of looking at it. Most people, when they're honest, I mean, you've got these bonus points and air miles and things like that you can use on credit cards, but really, it's pittance compared to what the banks are making out of you on the interest anyway, when the interest kicks in. Yes, they can be useful, but if you're using them to just buy shopping or buy things that you can't afford, then of course you're just going to pay tons and tons back. If I just paid the minimum payment, it would take me several years to clear this balance off, and I'd end up paying nearly what I owe on the card in interest, which is what they want, of course. So what I did, I had some money in an ISA that was earning next to nothing, and I drew some money out from another savings account that I had, and I've cleared £500 of that balance straight off. And I plan to clear the rest certainly before the end of the year. Now, if you don't know, my situation is, my name's Steve. I'm looking to retire next year at 55 when I can access my personal pension, sell my property, which has got about 100k equity, add that to my pension pot, and then we're going to be living life on the road until we can retire in France, ideally. But part of all this plan is going to be paying off some debts. And I've got about 10 grand across the board of various debts, bits and pieces that I just want to clear. Now, credit card debt is an absolute priority, especially when I saw the interest rate the other day. It's just absolutely horrendous. Even if I was to put some money into my wife's SIP, which she can access because she's over 55, and then get the 25% tax relief on it, 25% is less than the 31% I'm paying on a credit card. So it makes sense to throw money at the credit cards, get rid of those balances. I mean, it's probably a no-brainer to most of you watching, but I'm not a financial expert, far from it. I'm just looking at ways to smarten up my money and maximise my very low income and stop paying interest where I don't need to be. That's the idea anyway. Now I know that some people say that debt can be used to your advantage. Of course, if you say you borrow, I don't know, 10 grand to buy something that you then rent out and you're paying 5% interest on it, but you rent it out and get 10% return on it, then of course your quid's in. And a lot of people do that with, for instance, mortgages. They get a buy-to-let mortgage, they buy a property on it, they have a mortgage on a low rate, but their return that they're getting is much more than the interest that they're paying on the mortgage. Absolutely, you can scale that up, and a lot of people do. And I could have done that over the years. Looking back, hindsight, 2020 vision. Looking back, I could have probably done something like that, but I didn't. And I am where I am at the moment. Yes, I could do that going forward. I could use my pension maybe to purchase a property, get a mortgage, get a buy-to-let mortgage on it. The buy-to-let mortgages are all interest only. They're on low rates, but you have to have a high loan to a higher LTV. So you have to put down quite a lot of money first. And in fact, we did look into this. I looked into this with NatWest some years ago and got approved or kind of provisionally approved for a buy-to-let mortgage. But it just wasn't going to be the right thing for us at that time. But that could be something we could do going forward. But I probably won't because, we want to spend our time on the road. We're looking forward to that now. We're looking forward to freeing up our lives and not bogging it down with lots of admin and headaches of renting out property and that kind of stuff. I know that, if I'd have started in my 20s or 30s, I could be fairly wealthy by now, I'm sure, if you use those tools right. So for me, what I'm trying to work out is, clearing off the debt in the best way possible, but still keeping some money so I can still pay the bills until I can access my money next year and stop working. That's the idea. And freeing up debt is all about freedom for me. It's not about getting rich or playing the credit card game or play the debt game. But I just thought it was interesting because, when you do searches on credit cards online, there's tons of all these gurus, financial gurus going, oh yeah, credit cards will make you a millionaire. I'll say tons of them. There's a few of them going, credit cards will make you wealthy if you use them right. And I'm sure for some people that would work, but for your everyday average person on a mediocre income, I don't see how that's possible. I really don't. And it's all geared towards the banks making money, maximising their profits at the expense of people getting caught up in credit card debt. I've seen it. I worked in a bank for 13 years. I've seen it. They encourage you to borrow. That's how they make money at the end of the day. So as far as I'm concerned, I've now put a microscope on my credit card debt, which is not a massive amount, but overall my borrowing, I've got some interest-free borrowing on our boiler that we had fitted. I'll clear that off. That's a couple of grand left. But I was thinking of next year taking like 10 grand and just clearing all the credit card debt. Well, actually, what I'm going to do now is try and pay that down before the end of the year. Not sure how we're going to do that, but if I can maximise my wife's SIP money with our income going into the SIP and then back out to clear off debt that way, either or, that's the goal, is to have all of our debts cleared by then, and then that way it's less of a lump sum to take out of my money, my drawdown. And then, the less I take off of that, the less I use for, debt next year, the more we'll have to invest and generate an income. That's the plan. Really just a brief update and some thoughts on credit. So if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel if you're interested in, straight talk about retiring early and money talk, good and bad. Thanks to Defeffel Blog for your recent super thanks. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And in the next couple of videos, I'll probably be going a little bit more into the financial side of things because we're really narrowing things down now. So in the meantime, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.